The room fell silent the instant the glass tipped. Deep red wine splashed across the man's white shirt, soaked his tailored charcoal suit, and dripped slowly onto the polished marble floor. Nearly 200 of the country's wealthiest executives, investors, politicians, and celebrities watched without moving. A few gasped. Others smirked. Several quietly reached for their phones, believing they had just witnessed the most embarrassing moment of the evening. The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't wipe away the wine. He simply looked down at the stains, smiled faintly, and folded the cloth napkin onto the table with perfect calm. None of them realized they had just humiliated the only person capable of saving or destroying their billion-dollar future. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always matters more than appearances, please take a second to like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories that remind us never to judge a person by what we see. Nathan Carter had spent most of his life proving people wrong. Raised by a widowed schoolteacher in a tiny Midwestern town, he learned early that respect was earned through character rather than expensive clothes or loud words. His mother worked 3 jobs, skipped meals so he could eat, and taught him that true wealth was measured by the lives a person improved. Those lessons never left him. Years later, after founding one of the world's most innovative technology companies, Nathan quietly stepped away from the spotlight. While magazines featured younger CEOs posing beside private jets, Nathan preferred anonymous hotel rooms, economy flights whenever possible, and simple suits without designer labels. Only a handful of board members knew what he looked like, because he rarely attended public events. His focus had always been building opportunities for employees rather than building fame for himself. That evening he attended the prestigious Horizon charity gala alone. The event celebrated what organizers proudly called the largest corporate partnership of the decade. Executives from Sterling Global believed they were only hours away from finalizing a $1 billion agreement with an unnamed investment company. They knew the owner would arrive quietly, but none had ever met him. Nathan never announced that the owner was him. He wanted one evening to observe people honestly before deciding whether they deserved his company's trust. As guests filled the ballroom, Nathan noticed something that troubled him. Waiters were spoken to harshly. Cleaning staff were ignored as though invisible. Security guards were treated like furniture. Wealthy executives complimented one another while mocking anyone whose clothes appeared inexpensive. Among them was Victoria Langford, Sterling Global's glamorous vice president. Elegant, intelligent, and admired by the media, she had one dangerous weakness. She judged people within seconds. When Nathan accidentally brushed against her while helping an elderly server steady a heavy tray, a small drop of wine landed on Victoria's designer dress. It was hardly noticeable. But her pride exploded. Without pausing to understand what had happened, she grabbed the nearest glass of red wine and poured every drop over Nathan's head. The ballroom froze. Wine streamed through his hair, stained his jacket, and soaked his shirt. Several guests laughed nervously. Others whispered that the poorly dressed stranger had deserved it. Not one person offered him a towel. Only the elderly server, whose tray Nathan had prevented from crashing to the floor moments earlier, quietly apologized with tears in his eyes. Nathan placed a reassuring hand on the old man's shoulder and smiled gently. He cared far more about protecting another person's dignity than defending his own. Across the room, cameras continued flashing while guests congratulated Victoria for standing up to what they assumed was an inconsiderate intruder. No one asked for Nathan's name. No one wondered why someone with such calm confidence had never reacted in anger. 20 minutes later, the master of ceremonies stepped onto the grand stage. The lights dimmed. Music filled the ballroom. Everyone prepared to meet the mysterious owner behind the billion-dollar partnership that promised to transform Sterling Global forever. The announcer smiled proudly before reading the introduction. As Nathan quietly walked toward the stage, confusion spread through the crowd like wildfire. People stared. Victoria's confident smile slowly disappeared. The chairman of Sterling Global suddenly stood up, his face turning pale. The announcer welcomed Nathan Carter, founder and sole owner of Atlas Horizon Technologies, the company financing the historic $1 billion agreement. A silence heavier than thunder filled the ballroom. The same men who had stood covered in wine only minutes earlier now stood beneath the brightest lights in the building. Nathan looked exactly the same. Only now everyone finally understood who he was. Victoria's hands began trembling. Executives exchanged terrified glances. The chairman hurried forward, desperate to apologize before irreversible damage was done. Nathan accepted the clean jacket offered by a staff member but politely declined every public apology. Instead, he looked across the ballroom with remarkable calm. He explained that business was never built upon impressive presentations or expensive decorations. It was built upon character. Every investment his company made reflected the values of the people receiving it. Tonight had been intended as a celebration, but it had quietly become something much more valuable. It had become a test. And unfortunately, many influential people had failed it. Nathan spoke not about the wine but about the invisible employees everyone ignored. He spoke about the elderly waiter nearly blamed for an accident he didn't cause. He spoke about respect shown only toward people believed to possess power. Then he shared something few expected. His mother had once cleaned office buildings after midnight. For years she had been treated exactly like the staff working inside that ballroom. Invisible. Disrespected. Forgotten. He had promised himself that if success ever came, he would invest only in organizations where every human being mattered equally. The chairman lowered his head in shame. Many guests quietly wiped tears from their eyes. Victoria could no longer hold back her emotions. She stepped forward, sincerely acknowledging that she had judged a stranger based entirely on appearance. She admitted that her greatest mistake wasn't spilling wine. It was forgetting another person's humanity. Nathan believed genuine remorse deserved recognition. Instead of humiliating her publicly, he announced that Atlas Horizon would postpone, not cancel, the billion-dollar agreement. Sterling Global would receive one final opportunity. For 6 months, independent investigators would evaluate how every employee, from janitors to executives, was treated throughout the company. Promotions would depend on kindness, leadership, and integrity rather than titles alone. Only if meaningful change occurred would the partnership move forward. The announcement surprised everyone. They expected revenge. Instead, they witnessed mercy. Over the following months, Sterling Global transformed completely. Executive dining rooms disappeared. Managers worked alongside maintenance crews. Employee appreciation programs expanded. Customer service improved dramatically because workers finally felt respected. Victoria herself became the strongest advocate for compassionate leadership. She visited every office, personally thanked staff members, and established scholarships for employees' children in honor of Nathan's late mother. 6 months later, Nathan returned. This time no one noticed his suit. They noticed the smiles exchanged between executives and janitors. They noticed waiters being thanked. They noticed kindness replacing arrogance. The billion-dollar agreement was finally signed, not because profits had increased, but because people had changed. Nathan often said that the greatest investment anyone could ever make wasn't in companies. It was in character. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness is always more valuable than status, please like this video, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts around the world. Speech balloon special request, comment below with character over status if you believe the way we treat people when they can do nothing for us reveals who we truly are. As guests left the ballroom that unforgettable night, no one remembered the expensive decorations or the billion-dollar contract first. They remembered the men who stood covered in wine without anger, chose compassion instead of revenge, and proved that true greatness is never measured by the power we hold, but by the grace we show when others least deserve it. And for everyone who witnessed it, that lesson became worth far more than $1 billion.